sort of like, right.
Well, and payroll costs go up. I mean, that's the area ideal of the payroll at Amador Health. And,
Yeah,
if you want to have employees, you better pay raises.
take care of them. That's right.
At least keep up with, we had more inflation.
At least.
Are these the minutes, kind of, sort of?
I'm sorry?
Are these kind of like minutes?
What is it? Did he give you
It wasn't, I wasn't
it?
here.
Probably he gave it to you.
Okay.
What is it?
I think these are the questions that kind of came up last time. And
Yeah.
I was going to try to track down information.
I'm
on
guessing the mayor's answers are in red there.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I was trying to figure out what,
And may I ask you to speak into your mics?
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know we were on.
We're not on
We're
yet,
not
are
on
we?
it yet.
They're not on?
No, we're
No.
not on. I mean, this meeting isn't called to order yet.
No, I know, but make sure that we.
they're not, is yours working?
Yep.
Okay,
We need your mics.
Yeah.
It is recorded.
because when Veronica told me she couldn't hear me, I was speaking into the mic.
And we're having a hard time with this one. So,
Well, I guess I'm going to have to pull some reading glasses out.
yeah, this one is horrible.
You know, last time,
Because it takes a while to go live, so it is recording right now.
last time I went in for an eye check, the guy recommended bifocals, progressive. So I ordered one.
So these are progressive and I can wear them, but because they're so big, I don't know. I still need reading glasses to read. It's bottom line.
Walmart,
Yeah.
$7.
But with these are like trifocals. So I have one for the like driving, seeing the distance, one for seeing the gauges, and one if I have to look at something even closer.
Like looking at your phone while
Watch.
you're driving.
I don't do that. Let me tell you, I'm a single task person. I can barely talk and drive.
Multitasking is over.
You have to remember to turn it off. Okay. Sorry, I can't see my phone. There's some over here on the table. Okay. Would you like some water?
I would, please.
I would too,
Thank
please.
you. And I'm Liz, by the way. I don't think we met last time.
I'm Gloria.
Gloria, I heard your name, but I didn't actually.
I'll be right back.
But I hope whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna do today. Because
Me too.
I'm leaving town on Monday.
I thought the same thing. I was like, we should be able to get this done today, right?
I will send it after that.
Where are you going?
Oh, we're going on a Great Lakes cruise, and it's not
Oh, cool.
the traditional Great Lakes cruise goes to all the big cities, Chicago, Detroit,
Mhm.
Toronto, blah, 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 around it. This leaves from Milwaukee and it goes up to Mackinac Island and then cuts through the Sioux locks is what they call it to get up into
Yeah.
lakes. But it's like, it's on an expedition ship. These are the ships that were created to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, go
And so they have a big hangar in
icebreakers and all
back.
that.
But, and they have a big hangar back, so they have all kinds of little boats that you can go out exploring in.
Oh, super
They have
cool.
kayaks, they have Zodiac boats, and they even have two big boats, and they have a big crane system so they can load all us old people in the boat, in the ship, inside the ship, load them in the
and
boat.
then lower
it's-
you down?
Well, it doesn't lower it, it goes out the back.
Oh, really? Kind
It's
of
like
a
a garage
slide?
door, yeah,
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
That's super
With
cool.
a ramp. that-
I've never heard of one of those kind of
And then you
cruises.
grab them onto it, pull it back in.
Have you spent
Was
any
it-
time in Milwaukee?
I've been there for a conference a long time
It's
ago,
a
but I
great
haven't
town.
really spent much time
It's
there.
a
And we
cool
won't
town.
be spending much time there. We're flying in the day ahead because the flights out of El Paso were so bad that the cruise leaves the next day at 4, I think. We had to get on board by 4 and we couldn't get a flight that would get us there in time to get on
Yeah.
the ship by 4. So we had to go
Great
there in
German
time.
food. Oh, man.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, is your family recently from Germany, or is it?
I'm first
You're
I'm first
you're
generation,
first
yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
So I have
They
a
were
daughter-in-law
immigrants.
who's German,
Mhm.
and so we have been and continue to be very distressed about all this immigration stuff.
Hmm. Has she become a citizen or no?
No, she's actually still on a conditional green card because she went back to Germany to get her college degree after she and my son were going together.
Mhm.
And they went through the 2 years of that. And, she came and visited frequently. He went and visited frequently. Then COVID hit, so they didn't get to see each other much. Then when she was coming in Detroit, they gave her a really bad time. They decided that she was going to overstay her visa. She'd come to see her boyfriend enough times that she was likely to not go. And they made her cry, and she is fairly sensitive, but she also is very
Wait.
intimidated.
A sensitive German?
She is.
It's like an oxymoron.
And she, anyway, when she got to this, they had already hired an immigration lawyer, the same one we use it in Michigan, connected with him with, and he said, you know what, I can just tell you, they built a file on her now, they're not gonna let her back in.
Mhm.
So if you guys wanna get married, now would be the time. So
Well-
literally, they called me, I was in Florida, and said, get married 6
Go-
days from
go-
now.
going
if
to
you wanna
Vegas.
come." No, they got married in Scottsdale, but where they were living, but, so they got married, and then to be legal, she had to go back. So she
Oh.
went back to
didn't
Germany
realize
to
that.
wait for her spousal visa.
Thank you, sir.
You can stay if you have been here more than 90 days on some other kind of visa,
Okay.
but you can't do it on a
Hello,
tourist
Mr. Mayor.
visa. She entered the country on a tourist visa, so she had to come. So she spent 2 more years waiting to get almost a year and a half to
That's
get her
wild.
spousal
You're
visa. So
wet,
when she came in was
I'm gonna have to
January.
go get
Good
a
to see you. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you for being here.
It'll be 2 years ago in January, this coming January, so she's been here. So because they had been married less than 2 years, they only gave
How
her
are you,
a
sir?
conditional green card. She has to reapply
Good.
in what's 2 years. She'll be able to reapply in October.
Okay.
And historically, it's just
Reapply for citizenship or
no, a green
a
card,
new green card?
a full green card. And
Okay.
usually, historically, all they ever checked was, are you still married?
Mhm.
Are you still living with this guy? 'Cause
Sure.
you came in on it, you claimed you were.
Sure. Is this
They're
the
checking
real
to see,
deal or
is this
not,
the
or
real
is it a
deal?
sham?
Right. So
Yeah.
no big deal. But now, because they have so few employees that are processing visas, they don't want people to come in. It appears that it will not get processed, and the state of Arizona would only give her a driver's license for the period of her conditional visa. So
So she's
in January,
all these hoops to jump through.
both her visa and her driver's license will be gone, and nobody knows what she's gonna do at that point. So it's very stressful.
I can imagine. Move.
I'm presuming it will. And she wants to go back and visit her family. Heaven forbid, she wants to see her mom.
Well, and if she
And
goes back, then
Dad-
coming back in is going to
Right,
be a complicated,
But
right?
she is gonna go back. I mean, Sterling already told her, just go home, Maggie, enjoy your family, and let you back in.
And what
I'll
part of
pack
Germany is
up
she
and-
from?
She's from a little tiny town called House, and it's not far from Heidelberg.
Okay, southern Germany.
She went to school in Karlsruhe. She has a degree from Karlsruhe. It's called
How they
Institute
meet?
of Technology. She was an au pair here,
Okay, interesting.
and they were, pretty young.
Yeah.
He was going to college, she was an au pair, and she was supposed to only be here 1 year, and then after they met, she decided she'd stay another year.
Yeah, this is not a bad
And,
place to be.
Well, yeah. And she actually ended up living with us that second year. She was still working as an au pair, but staying in our house. So we knew her pretty well. It wasn't like,
Cool.
it was a,
It's funny how the world works, right? Paths cross, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, kind of cool.
well, and they are extremely, extremely compatible. So I've
Hmm.
never had any doubt that it was the right thing for them.
Great. That's
But
cool.
boy, the law has not made it easy.
And my parents came on a boat
Don't even mention that.
in October of 1952, across the Atlantic in a boat. Apparently, according to my dad, they're both gone now, but my mom was like Ralphing over the side the whole
The
way.
whole way, yeah.
My brother was 3 years old at that time.
Probably was not a huge boat, but, it's not,
Oh,
it wasn't the Titanic.
It was a cork in the ocean.
Yeah.
Tiny little boat, and bounced around, landed in New York, not Ellis Island, but something nearby
Yeah.
there. And then took a train to Chicago, where the sponsor was, didn't know a soul, didn't know the language, didn't have a job, didn't have any money, actually owed money for the passage over, and made a life. Went to work and learned the language and learned
And just
English.
for opportunity, basically, was the
Yep.
reason. So left everybody they knew behind.
Yep, my dad never saw his brother again. He had seen him before World War II broke out, and after that, never saw him again. His brother went to Sweden, so they never saw each other again. Yeah. Interesting.
What's interesting about all this for me is if they don't let her come back in, Sterling's just gonna pack up what he can and move over there.
Go to Deutschland,
They're
yeah.
done. They're tired of fighting it
Sure.
because the German government, even during COVID, when, we didn't let people from the Schengen countries come into the US for forever. Shooting. In fact, Mike and I went to Germany in August to go see her. Sterling didn't have any, he had started a new job, didn't have any time off. She was supposed to come here, the US government wouldn't let her in. So we went and had her
To see
tour
her.
us around for 2 weeks.
Interesting.
And it was great time. But anyway, we won't see Sterling that much. He goes, but
Yeah. Interesting.
can't blame him. His promise really to work in Germany. He could have lived there anytime he wants.
Mhm.
Their marriage was registered long before they actually, what he was registered as significant other. So they would let him enter Germany. But,
Oh, that's interesting. They weren't as clamped down as we were. I thought
they just
all
had
the
more
European
compassion.
countries
They
were.
weren't, but he was a significant other, and he was registered as a significant other. So it's just like your spouse.
You just said two things to me that are just like mind-boggling. Compassionate Germans and sensitive Germans. Like,
Yeah, I know
it's-
that maybe.
I know all the Teutonic ones, I guess.
They are.
That's interesting. Jerry, how are you? Did you guys work a lot together when you were at NMSU and you were at NMSU?
A little bit, but not a huge amount.
What's that? I'm putting you on the spot.
Don't put it over there, buddy. Anyway, it is more time consuming than people believe.
Well, it is if you pay attention and study,
But yeah,
you know.
motions, ruling on motions, looking at the case law, and becoming aware with the rules of evidence. I fortunately know all this stuff
Yeah.
from my past life, but there's still a lot of work.
I know, but for me, it was always a labor of love.
I'm gonna call. Good afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 5:02 p.m. We're meeting in the town hall of the town of Mesilla. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the roll call and determination of a quorum.
Trustee Nevares.
Present.
Here.
Ms. Ellis. Here. Mayor Hernandez.
Present.
Judge Di Matteo.
Present.
Marshall Escarate. We have a quorum, Chairperson.
Great, thank you. And I believe committee member Garcia did call in that she wouldn't be able to make the meeting, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may be recognized, she has some pertinent information with regard to the effects of the interface between Mag Court and the proposed objective, whatever that is, of this committee. I would move that we adjourn until she can come here because it's relevant, it's pertinent, it's germane, and it may be of great interest. My motion is to adjourn until we have her here. And I know it's a medical emergency, but I don't know what it is. So that's my motion. If anybody can understand it.
Motion on the floor. I hear no second. Motion, but motion dies without a second, right? Okay, hearing no second, the motion dies because of the lack of a second. The next item of business is changes to the agenda and approval. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda as it has been
Bless you.
presented.
I'll second that motion.
There's it's been moved by the Mayor Hernandez and seconded by Committee Member Heinrich to approve the agenda. Do we need a vote?
Trustee Nevada, what did you remember?
Okay.
this year?
Yes.
Mr. Hammer?
Yes.
Ms. Ellis? Yes. Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Judge Di Matteo?
Yes.
Marshall? Mayor, Chairperson, the roll call is 6 yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So the agenda is approved. The next item of business is public input. So is there anybody from the public that wants to speak on the subject matter? You have 3 minutes to speak. Please identify yourself when you come to the podium. There's nobody coming forward, so we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda, discussion of NMSA 35-14-1 municipal courts. And so including that discussion will be items arising from the public hearing on June 10th, 2025. With that, I open it up to the committee for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'll kick off discussion as I follow through with some of the answers to questions. I'm reaching out to the municipal league. And some of them, as I do have that sheet in there, some of them, as you see, are left unknown and still require a little bit of follow-up potentially. In specific, asking if all cases are heard, in magistrate court, does the town still incur costs associated with any of these cases? And if so, what are those fees, such as attorney's fees, testing, prisoner care, so on and so forth? Would the DA also be picking up cases such as domestic abuse, disorderly conduct, other cases that are simple misdemeanors, felony cases, so on and so forth? I spoke with Mr. Clinton Nicely, who is the Municipal League attorney and also represents the self-insures fund for the Municipal League. And what he relayed to me with some of these questions, it's unknown on what costs would necessarily be associated that the town would keep, but there would be some sort of costs that would be kept. More than likely, it's going to be dependent on case by case, but at the very least, those would be the attorney fees would most likely be kept. He did recommend highly speaking with the magistrate court that has taken a docket from a community to find out other information. So like Sierra County Magistrate Court for taking on Elephant Butte and Williamsburg. I did try to reach out to Magistrate Court. Have not had that connection just yet, and that's in Sierra County, but we will work on that. There would be the assumption that the cost would stay with the court that it is heard in. And I did actually speak with our attorney because they do represent both Williamsburg as well as Elephant Butte. And it wasn't really brought up in the last one, with attorney's fees and how those attorney's fees have been incurred since those two municipalities have had their transfer into that. And it was noted that they actually haven't had a case that's been heard yet in magistrate court on that. So I think that that's important to note. So that's not to say that there isn't fees associated, but has not been that reach out to the attorney who also represents that.
Mr. Mayor, can I clarify?
Yes.
On that point? So cases have been sent to magistrate court, but the attorneys for the town or the village have not had to get involved, so there were no costs incurred.
Correct.
I want to make sure I understood.
Yes, sir. And I'm sure that because we do have our attorney who is also their attorney present for that, who can also speak if there are questions on that. Following through on other questions, does a DA pick up all cases that are not officer represented? Was kind of an unknown, and that I'd gain more if I followed up with the magistrate court as well as the town on that and any fees that are there. And if there were any cases, but from the sound of it, there's no cases along that line. Do all fees and fines go to magistrate and not come back to the town? That would be accurate, that the town would no longer be collecting fees or fines. If the court is closed, presumably any cases that are open and pending would be transferred to be heard in MAG, and they would transfer, but it is still recommended to clear the docket if we do, or if the committee does make that recommendation. If there's existing bonds, do they get transferred? And they mentioned everything gets shifted over to a magistrate and gets taken care of by magistrate, but you would have to work to clear the docket if that were the case. And then I asked, have you heard or been able to speak on any pros or cons for communities that have completed the process? And they said that they have not as of yet. They did set me up with a Zoom with another mayor and another municipality other than the two that we're speaking about here that did go through the process on this. And so I'll be able to dive into more details on process-wise on everything. And then is there a charge to the town for the DA? And he said not likely, just as it was discussed. They all have their own independent budgets that they work out of. What if the MAG court or DA caseload is too large? Can they refuse to hear cases? He said no, but they would probably just delay hearing cases if that were the case. He did note in there again that they're collecting the fines and fees, and that they would be responsible for transport at that point in time if they do continue those cases, and how that works. And then if the resolution moves forward from the Mesilla Board of Trustees, could the magistrate court refuse? And he replied no, but the Supreme Court would need to approve it first. If it does move forward as such, to ensure to learn as much as possible from other magistrate courts, where he kept emphasizing learn as much from Sierra County Magistrate Court or Bernalillo County Magistrate Court, all of these other courts and other counties, and share those experiences with Doniana if they haven't had that experience just yet. Other papers or information that I have based upon our conversations was looking back. I did the financial spread just a little bit more in depth for you, and going back the past 10 years. Thank you, Gloria, for helping to pull that paperwork, because there was a question about wanting to see what it looked like if there ever was a point of there being a positive per se in there. And I think in reflecting on our conversation and the public hearing that we had in the last meeting, when I represented the budget and how the budgets work, the top line up, so above the black line that's on this page, Everything that's above that black line is specifically from the general fund and comes out of the general fund. So the revenues that come in are actually out of all revenues for the town as we look at that budget as a total. So they won't ever match up, and bring in more fines or fees, or even not even having any fines or fees isn't applicable to the general fund. It's about the money that's being spent. So that's why I went ahead and pulled out that revenue is what you see in green. So we see the actual total cost as it's associated each year over the past 10 years in that. And then I did go ahead and input back the fines and fees so that if there were fines and fees, you can see the correlation and the difference of that. The other below the line is those that are related to the courts that are there that are not related to the costs that you have here. On the next page, that's a lot of information. So because there was questions about other municipalities that have done this or that have tried to do this, and I know there was a report that was given an email that was forwarded by committee member Garcia from the Raton, village of Raton, town of Raton, and their information. One of the things that I wanted to pull out and point out is this information that you have here, basic information from the municipal league. What I just want to point out is the budgets that are down here. So general fund expenditures, as well as all funds. And then really looking at the census data for the number of residents. So when you look at the town of Mesilla, which is that first page, census data shows 2,196 residents to almost 2,200 residents, with a 1.5 million general fund expenditure and 3.3 million across all funds. When we look at the village of Williamsburg, having 449 residents with 318,000 in general fund expenditures, 485,000 across all funds. The city of Elephant Buttes having a little over 1,400 residents, $908,000 in general funds, and a little over 3 million in across all funds. The city of Raton, almost 6,900 residents, with 4.9 million in general fund expenditures and 15.5 million across all funds. And then the town of Edgewood, which is another municipality that was brought up, that Eddie can talk about a little bit if we need him to, has 3,700 residents, 4.5 million in general fund, and across all funds is 7.8 million. And the reason why I wanted to point this out is just the correlation between the size in the residents as well as the expenditures through the general fund for the town, for all towns, I should say, that have, or some of the towns that have done this. There was a request for the ordinance as it was passed by the city of Elephant Butte. So that is included in there for you all to review as that was adopted on that. Then we have the village of Williamsburg that has all of the meeting minutes, the ordinances, as well as the resolutions. Those are all included in there for review. And then the last two pages are ordinances that we had discussed, one for the city of Anthony, where they have their planning and zoning commission serve as a hearing body for all codes related cases, and for nuisance abatement is what it is. So this is just their ordinance and how they do that, and how the zoning commission hears those cases, and then the appeal process through that. Then we have the town of Edgewood, with their ordinance for nuisance, which is for specifically for codes related cases, where they have a hearing examiner who is retained by the town that does hear codes related cases in the absence of the court. So those are options there on that side, as we had discussed in there. So details on those. And I know Eddie's here to answer questions as it pertains to any of the codes related. He can also do a presentation if you would like him to.
I had a question on the one that contains the red answers. And it's the last one, really. If relating to the one of the pieces of the question is, could the MAC court refuse? And it says no, but the Supreme Court would need to approve first. So the Supreme Court approval would be more or less a formality.
Right.
Right.
So when we look at it as a whole, and part of that process, when we go through the process of this, so there's the process of confirming eligibility, passing the resolution of intent, which is what the Board of Trustees did. And that intent is to express the intent to possibly designate the magistrate court as a municipal ordinance court, form the advisory committee, which is what we have here, to hold a public hearing, which is what we did last week, the committee to submit a report, which is what we have, which is what we're deliberating on right now. And the report is a recommendation to the governing board. If it does move forward from there with that the committee decides to recommend that the cases be heard within magistrate court, then we would move forward with a resolution of adoption to the Board of Trustees. At that point in time, we would obtain the Supreme Court approval, and then the judge's term would expire, however that is, and nothing would happen until that term expires. And then we would notify and transfer the said ordinances to the magistrate court with all copies of municipal ordinances to be enforced. So that would be the process. So it is a formality. To get back to your question, it is a formality with the Supreme Court to follow through with the state statute as it has been designated by our legislators.
All right, thank you. I did have a request because you have in the packet the city of Anthony and the town of Edgewood, I think. And both of them have, I guess what they call, last time I heard the word bifurcate. So they divided which cases go to magistrate court and the zoning would remain within the towns. So I would like to hear from Mr. Salazar about, just provide an overview of, he's familiar with both municipalities, an overview, and if he has any information on whether these have proved to be successful. Before we start, does Mr. Salazar have to be sworn in?
That's not a,
Okay, sorry. State your full name.
Hi, good evening, committee members. My name is Eddie Salazar. I am the Director of Community and Economic Development here for the town of Mesilla. One of the reasons why I'm here tonight and speak with you all is I do have some experience regarding hearing committees and examiners due to code enforcement. My previous job or agency that I work with was the city of Anthony. I did work with an attorney and we did put that ordinance together for the purpose of nuisance abatement in Anthony. And basically what it is it's the difference between, there's a difference between a criminal summons and a civil complaint. And generally whenever there is a violation in code, it gets handled through a criminal summons through the court system as a municipality, as we have been doing here. I'd like to, kind of present a separate option to that, is a hearing examiner or hearing committee. In Anthony, we elected to have the planning and zoning be the hearing committee because they are well versed in our code or the code at the time. So that way, they're pretty much experts in what they can and can't do and those kinds of things. So that kind of helps also get the planning and zoning involved with the enforcement part of the code. So that kind of worked out pretty good. So yeah, the difference again is a criminal summons is one is a summons for a person in itself as criminal. That usually brings along with a lot of the constitutional rights for the individual and those kinds of things. And when a civil complaint is a complaint against the property. All right, the property in itself has not the same constitutional rights or rights in itself as a criminal summons would have. So basically, a criminal summons, what it would happen is a legal complaint would be filed. Resident will be in court via the criminal summons, and then the results either going to be in fines or potentially even a criminal record, depending on the amount of times that a code violation could has occurred. The hearing examiner is more of a civil administrative hearing. It's handled by a quasi judicial type hearing, and those kinds of hearings are heard by the hearing examiner. And I'll get into a little bit more detail in a little bit, but they focus more on compliance rather than punishment. We really want to work with, in Anthony, with the public or with the community, and we worked it through a system with the hearing examiner and also deadlines and timeframes such that we got the code abated or fixed, and there are no criminal record whatsoever when it comes to civil hearings. So that's could potentially become a criminal record, but that's something that we elected not to pursue. I guess probably the right term to put it. Problems with criminalizing code violations. Again, municipal courts generally. I don't know the ins and outs as far as here in Mesilla with the courts. I was just again asked just to present this because I do have experience, but here in our court, I don't know how busy they are, how many cases they listen to. But generally, whenever the municipal courts and in many other areas, maybe here, maybe not, like I mentioned, a code hearing generally ends up at the bottom of the priority for a lot of these courts because the criminal always seems to supersede above code violations in a sense. So a lot of times if the codes is busy, overburdened by so many cases, a lot of those cases always get pushed back more and more and more. Again, not exactly sure that's what's happening here or not, but in other municipalities, that's something that I've seen. Minor violations that we have, in our community, sometimes are treated as crime. But people, some people have never been to court. It's very intimidating coming to court. Coming to court because your weeds are too tall or your walls are not painted right. For an uneducated or person that's never been to court is very intimidating. So a lot of the times it's handled more properly through a hearing examiner or committee because it's more of a one-to-one type of relationship with our communities. So that was also a big positive. Potential, again, mentioning potential for criminal records or trivial issues. I know in animal control, this also could be applied to an animal control. This ordinance we created in Anthony was not for animal control because that wasn't really our intent whenever we passed this. It was more towards nuisance abatements of properties that were in bad condition. But I do know that the Albuquerque has a similar process with animal control, so that could also be included in something like that here in Mesilla if that was deemed necessary, or the committee or the board of trustees would like to do that. Court systems sometimes I'm not exactly sure their schedule when it comes to hearing examiners. It's more of a relationship type, try to fix the problem. So generally, it's a little bit faster. It's a little bit faster to get the cases or resolutions or the code violation fixed. Their hearing examiner is either appointed or elected or hired, depending on which way any municipality wants to go. Generally, they have experience in the code, either in the code, a municipal code where they're in, or maybe they're retired attorneys or judges or anything like that. But generally, the hearing examiner is somebody that has experience in that area or in the code itself. Lastly is cost efficiency. As mentioned, some of the numbers that you probably looked at, I didn't get those packets, but sometimes, whenever you go to court, some of these cases do not end that same day. Sometimes there are continuances, and then you got to go to another case. We have one or two now that have been going on for a while, so that all that adds up in fees and from the attorneys, so it adds up. It compounds on the case, right? And then the violation itself is again, it's a minor violation, and then we're treating them with attorneys, and then we're bringing in going to court. Again, all those, I think it's a little bit excessive for something that a municipality could be able to handle during the land use, our hearing examiners or committees. Other than that, I'll review the ones from the town of Anthony. If you have your ordinance there in front of you, I'll just briefly, if you jump to the very first part of it, is just it's common for ordinances that the language that you see, the definitions and such. If you go to page 4, is really when it starts about generally how the enforcement was handled. In the city of Anthony, we do have officers, code officers are called neighborhood services officers. Also, the police department was also empowered to be able to enforce this ordinance as well. Generally what happens, there's a violation, somebody either complains or sees a violation, they go and try to make contact. If you can't, you put a notice on the door. Notice on the door states you have so many amount of days to abate the violation. If you don't want to abate the violation, then the town has the town has the option, I guess is the word I'm trying to find, option to either give you a warning, file a complaint with the municipal court, again, with criminal summons, or an option of going through the P&Z hearing committee. So this ordinance did not dilute or dissolve the municipal court. This is just something that we elected to do. There was a better process to be able to go through our violations in this form. Again, this wasn't the intent to dissolve any court system. It was a little bit more, build a little bit better relationship, and was able to be a little bit more adequate, I think, for the violation itself. If the applicant does not or did not abate the violation within 10 days, then what happens is, according to the ordinance that was written, the town or the city has the authority to go in there and get it cleaned up. Either it gets it cleaned up through its own public works department, or we had contractors that we would call, and they will go and then they will clean up the mess, in a sense. If there was unoperational cars, washing machines, all those kinds of things, this ordinance also gives us the opportunity to negotiate with the contractor to say, okay, in lieu of what your fee is to get it cleaned up, some of the properties that you remove from the property could help with some of those expenses that were on the property itself. Now, there is an appealment. Now, if for instance, the owner of the property does see the notice and does not agree with the violation or the charge, then he has 10 days to appeal it to the planning and zoning. If he does not, then obviously he needs to comply with that. Now, if you do go to the planning and zoning or the hearing committee or hearing examiner, and he doesn't like that decision, then yes, he does have an opportunity to appeal for either to municipal court, depending how the municipality is put. Here in Anthony or there in Anthony, the appealment was to district court. It went straight to district court. It didn't stay within the municipality. The one in Edgewood does appeal to the planning and zoning. Planning and zoning decision goes to the BOT before it goes to district court. So it depends on depending how that wants to be handled. Anywho, again, that's just another option for this dealing with code violations, and I think it's a much for us. It was a much better way to doing it because, again, the hearing examiners knew the code. They were more involved with the relationship with the people that got it done. There was no criminal records would come out of that. And the abatement usually happen a lot sooner. We passed this ordinance in 22. I started working in Mesilla in 23, so it was only about a year's worth of time. And throughout that year, not once that we had to go through a hearing examiner, not once. So that was a positive thing because at the ground level or at the level of making contact, they knew what was going to happen, and they were able to be more cooperative that way. So having a lien on anybody's property is something, the last thing any municipality wants to do. But if the town went in there and get it cleaned up, it could be a small project, or it could be an abatement of a big building. Again, the last resort would be to put a lien on the property, and then the owner of the property would have to pay it back in that sense. If it doesn't get paid back, the municipality has that option to foreclose and get their money back. Again, that's the last resort that anybody, but yeah, I don't think it would ever. I spoke with a gentleman in Edgewood. I met him in the last conference we did. His name's Brad. I can't remember his last name. He has a lot of experience in it himself. He's been doing it for some time. And he says maybe there's about 2-3 times where it had to go to that point. Most of the time, it gets resolved before it goes that far. I stand by for any questions.
Mr. Chair, would you like to ask some questions?
Yes, go ahead.
You anticipated one of my questions, which was how long did you actually get involved with the implementation of this? So it's about a year, is what I heard. What worked well, and what did not work well?
My biggest hurdle was to try to get the board of trustees to budget the money to back up the cleaning of the property, because budgets are tight, and sometimes some of these projects could cost $1,000, $2,000. That money could get tied up in liens in a sense, and that was my biggest hurdle. I'll go again. It never got to that point, but trying to get it started off the ground was probably the biggest hurdle that we came across.
So
Now,
the
positives.
The scenario you're talking about there is property owner doesn't clean up, so you have to send the town's staff out there to clean it up. You talk about that budget?
Either their staff or outside contract. No, whenever this ordinance was proposed, there needed to be a budget for it for that expense. That's what I'm talking about. Is whenever it was is to have the budget to be able to pay, and how big of a budget am I allowed or to be able to pay for to clean up of some properties.
Okay, so the town budgeted it.
Correct.
Finally,
Correct.
but you never had to use it.
Correct.
Since you left Anthony, have you talked with anybody about how this is working?
Since I left Anthony, they haven't replaced my position. And yeah, right now they don't have a court enforcement department, anything like that. But the gentleman in Edgewood, I speak with him often, and he gave a presentation in this last conference, and I'm sorry, 2 conferences ago, and he's been doing it for years, and it's been pretty successful according to his.
Separate form, a similar sort of format?
Very similar, other than they have an hearing examiner instead of the planning and zoning. Other than that, everything's pretty close to it. Yes.
Are there aspects of the Edgewood process that do not work well?
Not that I heard. I've read the ordinance, and it's pretty close to. His comment was it doesn't really have to go to that extent. It's just having those tools or those means will prevent many of the occurrences.
So the process is there if it needs to be used, but
Correct.
it never needs to be used because things get resolved at a
Correct.
lower level.
Mhm.
And just a little bit more clarification. So the Anthony and Edgewood just separated out the zoning or the code type of violations and kept the municipal court for other cases.
That's correct.
Both of those municipalities did that.
See, the city of Anthony does not have a public defender under contract, and that is very expensive, right? Very expensive because just again, constitutional law, you have the right to have representation. If you can't afford one will be appointed to you, correct? So a lot of these, again, we're treating code violations as criminal violations. It was in the wrong place, right? Because once it went into municipal court, then it become a criminal summons. Now you need legal representation. Now you got to go through all these forms that cost a lot of money. And it's because the city of Anthony did not have a public defender, that they couldn't afford one. And this is one of the reasons how we kind of went around that part.
Any other questions?
Nope. All right, thank you.
Any more discussion from the committee?
Does anybody else have questions or anything?
Or comments?
I said last time, that we left, that I was interested in that's what they perceive the benefits and the negatives to be to move forward. We really have two possible proposals. One is, well, three if you count, stay the same,
Yes.
move just the, I'm gonna call them criminal cases, and the other is move all the cases to magistrate court. And I guess a variation on that is move the cases to magistrate court, but have an intermediary hearing examiner or whatever who would hear the cases locally, and then the appeal would be either to the magistrate court or to the district court. I've tried to follow the numbers, and for example, I'm not clear whether this court attorney's fees budget, we discussed last time, this is not the city getting general counsel type work. This is for the cases in the municipal court. But does this include the public defender fees as well? Or is public defender fees in another budget?
No, that's down below the line, right? It's not. It's you're talking about for indigent care, correct? Or
Yeah, if people who can't afford an attorney and then we appoint one for them, it comes out of this corrections.
it's not under attorney's
It's not
fees.
that,
No.
So, and it makes sense that we wouldn't consider it because even if they go to the magistrate court, we're still going to be responsible for appointing a public defender, I'm assuming.
Right.
We will.
No, we would not be.
Public defender,
No, please.
The magistrate court who.
Can you please identify yourself?
So, Robert Cabello, sorry, committee, Robert Cabello on behalf of, well, one of the attorneys that does the prosecutions, the case from Maya Springer. My experience, because I did, I'll just give some background. I prosecuted, I was a DA for like 5.5 years, worked for the city as general counsel for 9 years, where it was kind of a legal dog body. I did everything from civil litigation, criminal law, administrative stuff. So a couple things. The public defender, because I dealt with a number of these types of cases of what happens when it goes to magistrate court. The public defender, the district defender, so the public defender here, this district, has to pick up the cases in mag court if there's jail time attached to it, which is the cases that you would be concerned about. As far as, they wouldn't handle traffic tickets or anything like that, but they have to handle it. It would be somewhere like the DA's office on the other end as far as those cases. In fact, the public defender would probably pick up more cases than the DA is going to pick up, because the DA is going to focus on, again, I don't know their policies. They're going to focus on first DUIs and domestic violence cases. Those are the most serious cases where people get harmed. Other stuff, not so much. The officer prosecutors can handle that. As far as, did I answer your question?
I think so, and I think the point that I was trying to make then is that that's a cost savings to the city that does not show up on the sheet. That the cost of paying a public defender, if I'm not mistaken, is not on this summary.
Yeah, so
I've been trying to wrap my hands around really, and I asked you questions about this last time about your attorney's fees and how much would it go away and how much would still be there, and I got, I think, a fair amount of clarification that it's maybe not 100% of this goes away, but a lot of it would go away.
a lot of it go away. So it's, again, I'm not charging people, spending all my time on the phone. Okay, I'm not.
I don't worry.
Yeah, no. So, but what it is like, look, I'm looking at the videos, and sometimes they're hours long because the DUIs are extremely technical, because you have this thing called the NHTSA manual, the National Transportation Safety Highway Board, that does the manual, like how are you going to do the SFSTs, the walk and turn test and those things. And so the nature of how you give the examples and the clues are really important. So you sometimes have to watch them because it is kind of hard. You have to like go back.
I have no doubt that it takes so much time, but what I'm really trying to get at is that that's an expense that essentially the legislature has decided municipalities like this one can offload to the state.
Yeah, because right now we have a public defender, an attorney that's on the wheel. We only have, I think, one, Mark Motes, that does our defense
So really,
work.
I'm really trying to wrap my hands around is how much money are we talking about saving? You know, if you're talking about saving $10,000, probably is not even worth everybody's time and energy to think about. If we're talking about saving, you know, most of 168,000 plus most of the cost of the public defender plus some of the court budget fees, then you're talking pretty substantial dollars. And so when I look at the positives, and thank you, I don't think I have anything else. You can stand back up if I bring up something else, but I see potentially fairly large for a municipality of this size, fairly large cost savings when we look at those three sources of potential reductions in costs. And of course, those cost savings are greater if you send all of it to the magistrate court. Once you decide you're going to keep the court for any purpose, then a lot of those expenses related to the court stay. But again, we'd still have the savings of the attorney's fees and the public defender fees. So costs are definitely one of the aspects of it. I am a lawyer and I'm proud of it, and I know what it takes to get a law degree and what it takes to become a judge. And I think the increased legal training at magistrate court is a positive thing. And that's no disrespect meant to Judge DiMatteo. And I understand that he has the law enforcement background, very deep law enforcement background, and that counts for a lot too. But it is not the same as having really spent the years and time studying the constitutional law and understanding. So the move would be that would be a positive thing to me in terms of the move, having these magistrate judges that have additional training or subject to a level of scrutiny from the Supreme Court, are required to get ongoing, continuing legal education requirements, and this is their career. They take this very, very seriously and spend a lot of time making sure they do understand. I have a good degree of faith that these judges would take this responsibility seriously. I know some of them personally, they take their duties very seriously, and that they're smart enough to read the different ordinances and enforce them well and fairly. I think that there is a benefit, and I know this is a potentially divisive statement to make, but that there's a benefit from the increased objectivity that would come from putting some distance between people deciding the cases and the people whose cases are being decided. And I can tell you that in magistrate court, when a magistrate has a personal relationship or has personal involvement, personal experiences with someone coming before the court, they recuse themselves and another judge is appointed. And there were a number of statements made in the public hearing about knowing people and about dealing with people personally. And I think that's perceived as a benefit by some of the people here in Mesilla. Long history of doing that. As someone who's kind of on the outside of perceptions by people here, and that is a perception that is fed by court, and it may not be real. It may be, but you see the person you see one person being kind of getting a personalized, hey, yeah, how'd the game go? Did your kid win? Whatever those comments may be, that are not the kind of thing that you would see or shouldn't see in magistrate court. So I think separating these cases and moving them to magistrate court would provide an increase in objectivity and a decreased perception of favoritism. In terms of legal training, I wanted to go back and say one more thing, which is I was disturbed to hear the judge speak of talking to the defendant and giving him the number and having these ex parte communications. That is something that is strictly forbidden by judges outside any professional judge situation, and it concerns me. So those are my reasons for thinking that this move, either in whole or in part, might be a good thing. What I heard against the move, and I read the statement from that was it Veronica sent us from the city of Raton and why they didn't consider this option. Certainly tradition has value, and this is a community with very strong history and traditions, and the people who have been here a long time value that, and I think that that would obviously cut against making this change. Someone mentioned the emphasis on unique city codes and the historical nature of the town, and being concerned that the municipal judges would not have the appropriate level of appreciation for that. I think they would, but I can understand that concern. Someone early in today's testimony talked about the kind of concern and fear of going to see a judge, and that it's really an intimidating kind of thing, and it's really easy for someone like me to lose sight of that and not understand what a big deal that is. And so providing a known and comfortable situation, given that most of the cases that we're talking about are not murder cases, they're lower level cases where that familiarity is probably a benefit. So I recognize that. I also want to mention one other thing that I did find troubling during the hearing, and that was the comments by the judge about the performance of the marshal's office and whether or not they were doing their job in bringing enough cases to the court, and that if there were more cases brought to the court, then there would be more revenue coming in. And I listened to that and I thought, but is that what the town of Mesilla really wants? Do you want because it's just another way to extract more money from people if that's how we treat it. And do we want to do that? Are we happier having a system where my understanding is, and not a lot of personal experience, but my experience is that this is a town where they try to get people to do what they're supposed to be doing. And I have been fairly successful at it. My one encounter has been I barely moved to Mesilla, getting close to some election. I put a political sign out, pretty soon knock on my door. It was a woman named Debbie. I don't know if she's still around. She was the codes enforcement person. And she said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, and I really don't want to bother you, but it's too early in Mesilla. You can't put your sign out there." And I said, "No problem." We walked out there together. I pulled it up, came in the house. That was the end of it. She told me what date I could put it out, and that's how it was dealt with.
You rule breaker, you.
I know. I had to call the mayor this time to find out what is the date that I can put stuff out. But I appreciate, that encounter gives you a very positive feeling about the municipality where you live. My kids went to school at Mesilla Elementary, Zia, and we dealt with the marshal's office and the various officers there on a regular basis in terms of just, casual encounters. And I thought it was really wonderful that it was such a close relationship. And I know the officers sometimes came to Mesilla Elementary, just like the fire department goes to Mesilla Elementary and provide a lot of personal service. And that's what makes this town unique and wonderful. And I certainly don't want to see that go away. So those are things, but I don't think that there should ever be an emphasis on issuing more citations to increase revenue, or that the marshal's office should be evaluated based on, are they writing enough citations? So that's just, that last part is just purely a personal perspective. So those are the positives and minuses from my perspective. I think that for me, the positives outweighed the negatives, but I know that other people could weight those differently. And I'd be curious what other positives and negatives that I did not pick up on you all have.
Okay. Thank you, committee member Ellis. Is there any more discussion from the committee members?
Guess I'll chime in. I'm not going to be as long or as articulate as you, I'm sure. I actually served as the alternate judge on the Mesilla Court for a period of time when Don Toomey was the judge. My goal when I was serving was to make sure that when people walked in, They felt that they were treated respectfully, fairly, but that at the end of the day, they didn't want to come back to court for whatever it was that they were here for. And as I was serving in that capacity, it occurred to me, not knowing about this process, but it did occur to me, I wonder why most of these cases aren't brought in a full-time court with trained judges, with law degrees, and I guess not all the magistrate court had law degrees at one point. But it just occurred to me that it could be done much more efficiently in another full-time sort of environment. And so, you know, it seems to me that would make a lot of sense. The question I have, Mr. Mayor, is if there is a cost saving, and it looks like from the numbers you gave us tonight, that could be significant. Does that cost savings result in assets or revenues that could be put to work in other ways for other services? Or will that ultimately result in a reduction of what the town of Mesilla gets from the state? Do you know?
So, and Gloria can probably answer a little bit on that as well, but because we're going through the budget process right now and getting the budget approved, but with any cost savings that would be there, they would be reallocated into wherever the board of trustees and specifically want to have that money reallocated upon that. It could be in anywhere from additional positions to increase in money going into infrastructure, increased equipment, purchases for public safety, for public works, you name it, whatever the point of the direction of that money would be. And then that would be taken into consideration year after year, year over year, as that, and where to reallocate that money and how to reallocate that money.
The last couple of years, we're looking at close to $200,000. Which for a community this size would seem to me could be put to work in a better way for the citizens of the community. So I'm a fan of moving the cases, possibly with the exception of the zoning and municipal sort of ordinances that Mr. Salazar talked about, to the magistrate court as well. I do want to mention one thing, and I'm glad she's here. The court clerk, Ramona, was absolutely amazing, a very good asset for this community. And I want to thank you publicly for all you did for me. You made my job as easy as it could have been. And I've got a great deal of respect for her. Whatever happens with the outcome of this, I would highly encourage the town of Mesilla to do whatever it can to hang on to Ramona and put her in a worthwhile position, because she's got a lot of talents, and she was always here, dealt with the public, wasn't always dealing with pleasant people, but she treated them respectfully and kindly, and she was a really good reflection on the community. So. Again, whatever happens with this process with the board, I would highly encourage the board to do whatever you can to keep her around.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee member Heinrich. Any other discussion from the committee? Okay, I think what I understand from our last meeting, that there was 3 options really that we potentially could consider to move forward. One of them is to retain the status quo as it exists today, restrict the functions, or the word that was used by bifurcate, whatever it was. Bifurcate. I'm sorry. It's split up the functions. They could either be retained here, or some cases could kinds of cases could be forwarded to magistrate court, and the zoning code violations would remain. And we heard options like the city of Anthony and Edgewood relating to those kind of cases. And the third one was that the court would be,
Status quo.
no, the third one would be to eliminate the court entirely. I think that's what I heard from last meeting as the options that, were before the committee. I stand corrected if anybody heard differently, but that's what I remember from the.
And our task is to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we're ready, we could close the discussion and move on to item number 6, the action and recommendation and consideration.
Before we move on to that, I just want to, and I know that I was asked on the floor during the public hearing about my personal opinion on that, and I think that we've heard a lot today that does kind of hit it on the nail on the head, if you will, and it's for as the CEO and being in charge of this town and this municipality, I am in charge of the budget. And, trying to, just as it is with the business, with anything else, it's a matter of trying to extend the dollar the best that we possibly can. And what we have here is a cost savings, as it's been pointed out, that happens because of laws that have been put into place in the past, or in recent past, I should say. That really, and as we look at the cost of the overall court, if there's another court system that has the potential of taking on a majority, if not all of that cost, then that savings as a whole. We know that in here, we would see the court budget as that total across the line would be almost zero, if not zero, all the way across. The fines and what kind of money coming in would be zero, so that would be a loss of revenue to the general fund. But with cost savings comes more liquidity, if you will. The marshal's payroll could potentially be decreased because everything's heard virtually through the magistrate court on that, and codes would still be or have the potential to be heard otherwise. And then we will see those attorney's fees, from the sound of it, almost completely dissipated. So I think that's, and hearing our attorneys more than anything, who they talk in favor of this, if you will, to a certain degree. I mean, they have the most to lose as well out of not just anybody. So they're losing a significant amount of money that would be going to them. So, I mean, they have skin in the game as well. And I think it's being a reality of what can we do to save that in the community. When we look at the cons overall, the court's been around for quite a while, and history is history, and we are very historic, and we love our integrity of our community. The one thing that I just want to point out that kind of hit home a little bit more is I was just in a meeting last week with Office of Cultural Affairs, and the museum here, the Taylor Monument, was giving a little bit of history, and they mentioned how Billy the Kid was in jail, and the history of Pat Garrett, and all of that is true to our community. Going into that, and how it directly ties back to the courts and to our judicial system, and how it's been around for a long time. And I take that and I think about that quite a bit. But I think at the end of the day, when we look at it, just as I mentioned, as I've been tasked with running and operating the town to the best of its efficiencies, sometimes things that happen or that have been around for years and years and years, especially processes, maybe they don't work. And maybe it is time for a change. Maybe it is something that we look at that and how that works. We can always live on with remembering history and what it was, and we can always move forward again. Because if it doesn't work, and it doesn't meet the needs if the committee decides to move forward, then there's a process in bringing it back, you know? So I think that that's something to always keep in mind and keep in the back pocket if the committee does move in that direction. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, hearing no other discussion, we're going to move on to item number 6, action and consideration under new business, the approval of any action or recommendation that arose from the public hearing. Committee?
Mr. Chair, I'd actually like to make a motion to adopt that the Mesilla Town Code or the ordinances be heard in magistrate court, and for the town to explore the options of hearing codes-related cases within still through a hearing examiner or through the Planning and Zoning Commission.
There's a motion on the floor.
When you said the.
No, there's a motion on the floor.
I'm trying to understand the motion.
Yeah, and we can have discussion if this motion,
After the second,
is that what you're saying?
I'll second.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor made by the Mayor Hernandez and seconded by Committee Member Heinrich. Now we can open up for discussion.
So I guess I'm not clear on what the motion is, because the first part of it was to recommend transferring the codes cases is what I heard. And I'm.
No, sorry, it's transferring the municipal ordinances to be heard within.
All of the municipal ordinances except
And
exploring the codes cases.
yes,
So it's kind of, is that the option, I guess, in part of the discussion is to bifurcate the process.
right.
Well,
So it's still, it would still look at that the codes cases being heard externally and not internally, if you will. So, and not through the court, but it's either through a hearing examiner that's retained otherwise, or through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and for the board of trustees to explore those options.
All right, does that help with you?
I think I understand, and I'm not sure that the motion's going to say that exactly in terms of you guys strictly go by what was read on the record.
Okay,
So,
okay, so we can have Gloria repeat what was said and then,
We can amend the motion as well.
do you remember? As best as you can, and we can amend the motion too, so.
Well, and I think just real quick, I think it's a little, it can be a little confusing because the Mesilla ordinances are called the Mesilla Town Code specifically.
right, and so
So-
I'm the one that's confused. You
Yeah.
guys, I don't think are confused. It may just be me.
I'm confused.
Okay,
Okay,
so it may be that the motion was perfect.
I know, but again, are you okay? Do you, I mean, is there more discussion that's needed on the motion? Or does there need to be an amendment to clarify things? So I'll entertain, it's up to the committee members, please.
So it would, the mayor entertain a motion to,
It's a,
maybe it is what you, or to amendment to the motion, friendly amendment to the motion to essentially say we're going to recommend transferring all of the ordinances subject to the possibility of retaining jurisdiction or some other methodology for resolving. And I'm not sure which exact cases you were wanting to hold back on. Because when I tried to figure out what the cases were, I went to call what I call criminal violations, a lot of which would just be municipal. The nuisance cases, I think, really fall into, well, I'm not sure which category they fall in. The zoning cases, I'm not sure, and then the animal control cases, which of those three we're talking about recommending to retain, or do we even need to say it? Is it fine to just do what you, approve what you said and let the Board of Trustees figure it out?
I think our task is to provide them with a recommendation, right? So I'd like to be as specific as we possibly can to try to make their job maybe a little bit easier.
Point of order.
Yes,
Gerard, were you still in discussion?
Motion.
we're discussing on the original motion. We did have an amendment, but it's still not. We're still discussing the motion made by Mayor Hernandez.
Okay, so once the motion has been clarified, are we going into a discussion about the motion?
We are doing, that's what we're doing. So we're discussing it. There's discussions. The floor is open for discussion on the motion. So committee members, I open that up to discussion.
Judge, do you have comments on the motion?
I do. Can I be recognized? Thank you, George.
Yeah, the chair recognizes
Oh.
Judge Di Matteo.
My name is Henry DiMatteo, and I am not going to knock this down today. I'm the presiding judge. I respect each and every one of you, but I'm not on trial here. I'm not on trial. And I think it's my position. You haven't seen me work 1 second, of 1 minute, of 1 hour, making rulings, conducting court. No one has seen me. No one, not even the mayor. He has a confidence in me. So everything you say is either anecdotal or it's based on some assumption. I respect Ms. Ellis, but what she says is her opinion. And she's right, but it remains her opinion. That's all it is. It's her opinion. She's not wrong, but you got to keep it in context. You do. As Mr. Heinrich said, you have a great clerk. You have a great alternate judge. Got a great marshal. You got a superb prosecutor. But I think we're a little premature here. I think we need to work a little bit more and work very carefully. Who comprised this, Mayor, did you?
Yes, sir.
And it's very well done. However, there's too many unknowns. There's too many recommendations that require follow-up. There's too many unknowns here. Well, if we're not going to collect fees, we're not going to collect. If we're not going to collect fines, we're not going to collect fees. It goes without saying. Have you heard or able to speak to the pros and cons? And hey, I have a Zoom meeting tomorrow. It's not good enough. Now, is there a charge to the town for the DA? Not likely. Well, what does that mean? It's vague. This committee needs to go to the Board of Trustees with specifics. And is a caseload too large? Can they refuse to hear court cases? Well, we might be delaying hearing cases. Just today, and this is not new, just today, one of the marshals told me I was in mag court and I put in 12 hours of overtime. You don't get the personal touch. It's an impersonal. That's just the nature of the game. But there are indirect costs. The Supreme Court would need to approve it first. I don't think that's a problem. But we need to do a better job. As a committee member, we need to do a better job. Let me be very clear. I'm not easy, but I'm real easy to get along with. I'm real easy to get along with. Even if I know the person's name, I ask them if I pronounced it correctly. And I do that out of courtesy to them. None of you know this. I'm not on trial, but I want to just leave you with 3 questions. It's helped me. It's not theory, it's fact, because I've seen it too much. I learned this from an economist years ago. His name is Thomas Sowell. He's still alive, I believe. There are 3 questions. Whether buying a truck, changing a program, buying land, buying equipment, buying a dishwasher, you have to ask 3 questions. And we haven't answered these questions. One, what as opposed to what? Okay, now we have an option here to move to magistrate court. Good, that's an option. Another option, as was stated by, was to do nothing. Monitor closer. Another option is to proceed accordingly. But that question hasn't been answered. As opposed to what? Because there's too many questions yet to be resolved. Secondly, at what cost? At what cost? Just the officer marshal today said, I put in 12 hours overtime waiting in magistrate court. That doesn't happen here because we move things. You have to remember, the purpose of traffic enforcement is not to collect fines. That's a really muddy water. It's to educate the violator. In so doing, the officer is provided latitude to determine if a citation is more corrective. But that's the purpose. It's not to collect fines. Remember I told you last week about government oversight. Dangerous. The whole issue is not a cost factor. It's a productivity factor. Yes, we have codes. We got a great codes guy. He's just got his degree. He does a good job. He's just not trained. And I've got evidence up the wazoo that he's just not trained. Once he's trained, he'll produce good cases. So at what cost? We haven't answered that yet. There are indirect costs you haven't even thought of yet. Delays. Magistrate court is not the personal court that you really believe. It's herding cattle. It is not as impersonal as you think. Thirdly, the third question is, what direct evidence do we have that this will work? We got anecdotal evidence from towns with completely different demographics, budgets, but they're just, it's data. It's data. Mr. Salazar, eloquent as he is, point out some good questions. We can resolve things. You're not going to resolve it in magistrate court. Are your weeds too high or your weeds not high enough? So as a result, this committee, and those three questions, they don't withstand a lot of scrutiny without some depth. Now, if we want to proceed carefully, because I don't think this is just something that you turn on and off, but people are really treated well. Yes, I told you I'm easy, but I'm not easy to get along with. If you violate the Fourth Amendment, it's not my problem. If you violate the process, it's not my problem. The person goes free. And I personally instruct the defense attorney, somebody contradict me, make sure you're compliant. Make sure your client, the defendant, understands what's going on. Plea agreements. I've had them by the officers. I asked the defendant, do you know what this is? And do you know what it means? And they say, I don't know. I just signed it. Well, that's not good enough. So we're going to take a recess. And the defense attorney will go outside and explain to him. So he has constructive cognitive knowledge that what he signed, he's going to abide by. But we move things. And you got to be real careful because this is a community court. And we do solve problems. We have cases a year, and your attorney has gone out of his way to resolve the issue. coming from the public sector, I have learned very quickly, it's easy to find fault. I can point fingers and I can make out it's easy to find fault, but it's harder to solve the problem. It's harder to solve the problem. And so consequently, when you abolish, be careful of those 3 questions and be careful of the unintended consequences. This is not a money-making organization, but I know calling balls and strikes, I only can deal. I can't go out and enforce. I only deal with what they bring me. If there's a problem, and there is, those marshals are rude and crude and they offend people. I says, fine. I won't accept that, but I says, I know where your remedy is. And your remedy is with the marshal, who will be more than happy to address your issue. He'll be more than happy to deal with it. But the court does not provide that type of remedy. So I learned years ago, I got a tough skin, but I don't care about things that don't care about me. So, I don't mind the banter, the false assertions, the false witness. I don't mind all that. I'm coachable. And I do have training, and I continue to train. And I've got mentors, and I continue to deal with those mentors who are attorneys. But you've got to look at those 3 areas as opposed to what, at what cost, and what direct evidence do we have? We got some, but it's just reported data. We don't know. We don't know. However, as the illustrious Mr. Salazar said, they've got to differentiate between civil process and criminal process. And we deal with the criminal process. But I don't allow things to occur in this court that are going to compromise a person's rights or process. I don't give legal advice, but I encourage them. Go with Ms. Ramona. Apply for an attorney. Indigent. But there's a certain, leeway. A lot of people get it. A lot of people don't. Because I want them to get the very best representation. And I'm telling you what, Mr. Cabello, he comes in with both guns blazing. But he's got a public defender that don't go down so easy. So I urge this committee to table the motion, get some more data. We've got the MAC court says this, the MAC court says that. I don't think so. And I've dealt with MAC courts where we put in hours of overtime, district courts, because they're not ready for us. And we, for example, in El Paso, we had to invent our own court liaison just to save costs. Just to save costs. But if you want to do anything, improve quality. Just improve quality. That's all you have to do. If the officer is entrusted with presenting a case, present the case properly. You cannot introduce hearsay evidence and get a conviction. You cannot. You better be ready at trial. There are marshals, to the marshal's credit, who come in prepared. They come in ready to go. At the time the meeting is called to order of the trial, they're ready to go. And there's some that just need a little tweaking. Not my fault. In fact, I help them. Because if we can improve quality, everybody wins. One has to realize the marshal's office is only a few people. He's got the same responsibility as Dallas police chief, Phoenix police chief. Police work is police work. But he's only as good as the BOT allows them to be. And the mayor currently does as good a job as he can to provide the resources. He's a smart guy. There's a lot of things he doesn't need to know, or if he needs to know them, he'll ask questions. He's a problem solver. But when you're dealing with these types of numbers and these types of budgets, you're gonna have to make things stretch. There's ways to do it. But if you turn everything to magistrate court and they don't, and they're gonna scrutinize just like I will, if they don't get the perfect appearance, they're out of there. The defendant is out of there, as it should be. It doesn't take an attorney to figure that out. A violation of process is a violation of process. And even the attorneys here will take issue. I see I've lost you. I've got to go. I would like to be excused. I'm irrigating 24 acres. Time to go check the water, or the water will be in the mayor's house. So I'm leaving.
Judge, thank you. And
Do you have any questions of me?
Judge,
As a member of this committee, I would request that you stay through whatever the resolution may be or the recommendation. Which there is a motion that is on the floor.
so Judge, thank you for your comments, and I would also request that you stay for the vote, and then you could be dismissed. Thank you.
Is there a phone call you can make to have somebody check on things for you?
If I have to leave, I'll leave. Because the margin of error is very slim. So as such, I think we should move on. I would expedite things. If the committee is predisposed, well, let's do it. But, we be careful. Be careful, gotta move slow. You don't do things in 2 meetings and fire a perfectly good system. Nobody's above oversight. Everybody's coachable, to include the mayor and BOT. You show Miss Gloria how to do the budget better, by God, it'll be done. All of us are looking for the better way. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Call for the question. So
Actually, Mr. Chair, I would actually like to amend my motion if possible.
the chair will consider the amendment to the original motion, please.
I would actually like to amend my motion to make the recommendation that the town move to adopt the ordinances for the full code to be going to magistrate court.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor.
Point of order, could you read the motion again, please?
The motion, that as I understood it, was that made by the mayor, was that the full move the full code over to magistrate court was the gist of it. So there's a motion, an amendment on the floor.
So do you need a motion to approve the amendment?
No,
or-
we need a second to the amendment. So I'll entertain, it's up to the committee members.
Yep.
We have a motion on the floor.
I second.
So the motion has been seconded by committee member Ellis. So is there any discussion on the amendment?
Yes, I will discuss now, just real and quickly, that way it expedites. Codes, as it is, the recommendation from the board to move over to the by ordinance to the magistrate court. And then on a side note, I will personally, if this does go through as such, I will personally work with town staff to explore the options of nuisance abatements, town animal control, building, zoning ordinances to be created and revised to be heard in use.
before the trustees actually consider what. So
No,
move everything over to MadCor.
And then at the same time, my intent would be at the same time to change our ordinance before it gets adopted by magistrate court fully, whenever that may be at the end of the judge's term, as it's noted. So we would amend the ordinances to reflect a change for certain things to be heard here in town still.
Oh, you'd retain jurisdiction by amending the ordinance. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
any other discussion on the amendment? If not, a call for a roll call.
Are we just voting on the amendment?
On the amendment first, yes,
This will be on the amended
on the
motion.
amended motion.
Trustee Nevadas,
Yes,
Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Judge Di Matteo,
No.
and Marshall Escalante.
Yes.
So it's 5 yeses and 1 no.
so the amendment passes. No, we go back to the original motion.
The original motion is Mayor Hernandez,
Yes.
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
It's the original
Mr. Heinrich?
motion as amended.
As amended.
Yes, amendment, yes, so I add to that,
Yes.
Trustee Nevadas,
yes.
Judge Di Matteo, Marshall Escalante.
Yes.
Chairperson, the roll call is 5 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, so we have made the recommendations, so they will be going to the Board of Trustees. So this is a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. So we can move on to item number 7, which is next meeting date and time, and I don't think that's necessary. So we'll move to the last item, item number 8, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So there's a motion on the floor by Committee Member Ellis and seconded by Mayor Hernandez to adjourn. If there's no discussion, then this meeting stands adjourned. It is 6:30 PM.
Thanks.